Night had fallen. The lush orange skies of the Felucia skyline had turned black, as dark as the vast reaches of the galaxy itself. No stars were visible, and the silence had become as deafening as 1,000 battles in the mind of clone trooper Mordo. He took a deep breath and leaned against the wall of the cave he took refuge in. Looking around, he shuddered at the thought of how long he could be out here for, alone. He remembered it vividly, arriving on the planet Felucia a few days earlier, preparing to go into battle against a separatist outpost that had established a stronghold on the planet. Jedi General Ayla Secura and Commander Bly were on the front lines of the battle, but the droids were everywhere, and the harsh and unforgiving terrain of the planet meant that this would not be a swift campaign. Mordo was part of a group sent to scout deep into the fungal wastelands, a difficult assignment given the circumstances, but nothing out of the ordinary for the 327th Star Corps. They were some of the Republic's best. As his group descended further into the dense overgrowth of the planet, they were ambushed by a platoon of droids. Somehow their scanners didn't detect them, which Mordo concluded had something to do with the strange atmosphere of the planet. Many kilometers from their base camp, they were forced to fend off this unit, and somehow, in the heat of battle, Mordo had found himself separated from his group. He remembered taking a blaster shot to his leg, which he caressed with his gloved hand as he looked at the dried blood coating his white shin armor. After that, it was a blur. But he remembered falling through the terrain itself, waking up at the bottom of a ravine covered in various shades of blue and green fungi flowing over the ground like a river itself. He wasn't sure how long he had been out for, but everything was now silent and dark, so dark. It was too dangerous for him to try and find his way back on his own, but he wasn't worried. He knew his brothers wouldn't abandon him. Once the surface of the planet was illuminated by morning light, the situation would be much more manageable. Mordo slumped further against the wall of the cave at the bottom of this ravine, reached into his utility belt to unlock a small capsule of Bacta, and removed the armor from his shin to apply it. As he did this, he heard the sound of static coming through his helmet, his comm channel. This startled him, but he listened carefully to the words. "Nice work getting lost out there, Mordo. All these clankers to blast and you're missing all the action." Mordo's face lit up with a mix of relief and guilt. It was one of the troopers, Hex, that was with him earlier in the battle. He pressed his comlink to respond. "Apologies, Hex. Do you need my coordinates? I need an evac from my position." As Mordo waited for a response, his breath began to shorten. He must have been more exhausted from the battle than he realized. "Hex, do you come in?" Mordo asked again, concerned that he had not received a reply. Perhaps his comlink was broken. "Mordo, where are you? We need backup over here." This time the communication came from Tyro, another clone trooper from his unit. Mordo listened carefully to his surroundings. He couldn't hear blaster fire, so there couldn't possibly be a battle taking place anywhere near his current coordinates. "Get back to your post, brother. We're counting on you." "There's too many of them. Mordo, do you copy?" "We don't have time for this." As Mordo heard the voices of fellow troopers Diggs, Clocker, and Rally, he frantically beat the side of his head to try and get his helmet comm to work. "Brothers, I'm not sure of my coordinates, but I will find you." As Mordo stood up from his slouched position, he took a deep breath. His chest began feeling heavy, but he brushed it aside and planted his injured leg into the ground, testing the pain. It would work. He began sprinting towards the side of the ravine, determined to climb his way up. But after only a few steps, he felt his foot catch hold of something on the ground and stumbled to his knees. It was too dark to see, but Mordo was curious what he had tripped over, so he reached for his helmet to turn on his spotlight. Nothing. Frustrated, he slowly crawled towards the object, and felt around in the darkness. Once he grabbed a hold of it, he stared at it for a moment in the darkness. Tears began to build at the back of his eyes as he tried to make sense of what he was looking at. It was a clone helmet with a faded yellow stripe that had two distinct red marks slashed across the left side. It was his own. As he reached his gloved hand towards his face and felt his skin, a wave of frigid air overtook him. Confused and panicked, he launched the helmet as far as he could towards the other side of the ravine. As the helmet struck the ground, the spotlight triggered itself, and a bright light was cast into the shadows. As Mordo looked towards where the light was shining, there, illuminated, were the bodies of his entire squad. Blaster wounds littering their armor, their helmets cracked and their bodies mangled and broken. As Mordo looked out into the darkness of the cold Felucia night, spores from the fungi floated through the air, ominously.